vision, a man standing on high ground above the Thracian plain. The year is 378 AD. Below him, stretching toward the horizon, a Roman army is marching. It is marching toward him. His name is Fritigern. He has been waiting for this. He has been waiting for 2 years. 2 years earlier, the Goths had asked Rome for something simple, a border crossing, a place to rebuild after everything north of the Danube had been torn apart by a force that called itself the Huns. Valens had said yes. He had given them his word. Then his officials had given them starvation. What happened next was not rebellion. It was arithmetic. A population without food, without protection, without the agreement that had brought them here, does not remain passive. It moves. Fritigern watched what was being done to his people. He made the only decision a leader in his position could make. He picked up a weapon. For 2 years, the Eastern Empire bled quietly. A province at a time, a garrison here, a supply route there. Valens was occupied in the east. He could not be everywhere. But by 378, with a Persian truce signed and his attention finally free, he was coming back. His co-emperor Gratian was moving east from the other direction. The plan was to close from both sides and end it. Then Valens read a scouting report. He stopped waiting for Gratian. The report said Fritigern's force was camped 10 miles from the city, estimated at 10,000 men. Valens had 15 to 20,000. The numbers looked right. The timing looked right. What the report did not say was where the Gothic cavalry had gone. Valens did not ask. He ordered the march. August 9th, the column moved before full light. No proper rest. No water drawn for the march. The summer heat arrived early and these men wore iron. By midday they had covered ground most armies would have camped at. By mid-afternoon they could see the wagon circle on the rise ahead. High ground, waiting, and the Romans could barely stand. Fritigern looked at what arrived. An army, on paper. In reality, 15,000 men in the wrong condition on the wrong ground. Thirsty, off formation. Their cavalry wing still sorting itself into position. He had been managing the morning carefully. Envoys sent forward. Fields lit to thicken the air. His cavalry was not yet back, but it was close. He needed minutes. He was going to get them. The Roman right-wing cavalry moved. Nobody ordered it. They saw the wagon line through the smoke and someone made a decision that was not theirs to make. The Gothic infantry absorbed the charge, set their feet, held. The Roman riders found themselves stalled at the wagon perimeter with no support and no second plan. On the horizon, the dust cloud of returning cavalry grew larger. Valens had no clean choices left. He pushed the left wing forward. The center followed. All of it, into a battle that had started without him. At that same moment, the Gothic cavalry reached the field. Thousands of them moving straight for the Roman right. The right flank, already stalled and disordered, looked up and saw what was coming. Some held, some did not. The ones who turned carried the panic with them like a weapon. On the Roman left, the cavalry had been making ground, pushing Gothic infantry backward. For a few minutes it looked possible. Then the Allan riders struck from the side. Both Roman flanks were gone inside the same quarter hour. The center, the veteran legions, the best Rome, had produced, stood alone in open ground, with enemies behind them, with enemies beside them, with the only thing in front of them being more enemies. The Gothic cavalry that had broken the right turned back. Not to pursue the fleeing, they wheeled toward the center. The legionaries heard them before they saw them. The sound of hooves from behind where there should have been only open ground. They did not run. These were Roman soldiers. They turned outward and fought in every direction at once. It was the most disciplined thing on the field that day. And it was not enough. The center broke from the outside in. Slowly at first. Men on the edges who could still see a gap took it. Then faster as the gaps closed. At some point in the collapse, Valens was among them. We do not know when he stopped being an emperor commanding a battle and became a man trying to survive one. He was not found afterward by anyone. By nightfall, the count was something Rome had never had to count before. 2 in every 3 men who had marched out that morning, dead by sunset. The Eastern Field Army was not defeated. It was gone. Adrianople did not wound the empire. It removed something from it. The assumption that Roman losses could always be absorbed, that there would always be another levy, another season, another army to build. There would not. Not from this. The man who succeeded Valens, Theodosius, looked at what was left and made a calculation of his own. The Goths could not be expelled. They could not be destroyed. They could perhaps be given what they had been asking for 2 years ago. In 382 AD, the settlement was signed. The Goths would stay. They would fight for Rome, but they would fight as themselves, under their own leaders, by their own customs. It was the first time the empire had offered that. It would not be the last. There is still a plain in Thrace. The same heat arrives in August, the same grass, the same horizon. It holds no obvious mark of one afternoon in 378. But something shifted there. In the dust and the smoke and the failing light. That no emperor could rebuild and no treaty could reverse. Not a border. An idea. The idea that the empire could hold anything it chose to hold, simply by choosing